China's economic decline is unstoppable. In order to stimulate the continuously declining economy, the Chinese government has recently introduced many fiscal and monetary policy measures. Although the stock markets in China and Hong Kong experienced a short-lived boom under the Chinese government's loose monetary policy, the rise in the stock market is only a flash in the pan without changing China's industrial economic structure and investment environment. In other words, the market value of Chinese listed companies is unlikely to increase if the trend of China's economic recession cannot be reversed. As far as the Chinese real estate market is concerned, this column has explained in the article, Reasonable Expectation of Further Decline in Chinese Real Estate Prices, that the People's Bank of China's stimulus policy for real estate is unlikely to change the trend of continued decline in Chinese real estate prices. To be fair, the main reason for this column's pessimism about China's economic prospects is that China's economy is deflationary. Of course, many people often compare China with Japan's economy, which faced deflation and insufficient demand in the past. However, in addition to the significant difference in the degree of economic development between China and Japan, the difference in the political system between democratic and communist countries will lead to major differences in economic development. This is also emphasized by Darren Acemoglu, Simon Johnson, and James A. Robinson, winners of the 2024 Nobel Prize in Economics. Political and economic systems are closely related to national prosperity. Since Deng Xiaoping's reform and opening up, changes in China's economic system have gradually improved China's economy, and people's living standards have gradually improved. Even major countries in the world have regarded China as an important export market. However, after the rise of Chinese President Xi Jinping, the credibility of China's economic and legal systems has been greatly reduced, leading to a continuous decrease in foreign investment in China. Therefore, the decline of China's economy is closely related to Xi Jinping's destruction of the legal system and economic environment. Since Mr. Xi took power, the Chinese economy has gone through many periods of complete shutdown. During the 2 years of Mr. Xi's zero-COVID policy, all trade was halted. And recently, due to many politically sensitive policies, many foreign corporations, businesses, and individuals are afraid of being held hostage in case conflicts arise. As a result, they have massively withdrawn capital and left the Chinese market. The Chinese government's destruction of the market mechanism has caused a continuous decrease in Chinese consumer demand. According to the economic data released by the National Bureau of Statistics on the 13th of this month, China's Consumer Price Index, CPI, in September increased by 0.4% year-on-year, lower than in August. Since the beginning of this year, although China's Consumer Price Index has grown better than last year, the extent of its price increase is extremely limited. When the annual growth rate of the Consumer Price Index is low, as long as the price of products with a large consumption proportion falls, the annual growth rate may be negative. In other words, China's current domestic consumption power is insufficient. When consumers expect the economy to be pessimistic, it is very difficult for government policies to produce results. In addition, the Producer Price Index, PPI, in September fell by 2.8% year-on-year, the largest drop in 6 months. China's PPI has experienced negative growth for 24 consecutive months, showing that the ex-factory prices of Chinese products are continuing to decline, closely related to China's overproduction problem. Finally, in the face of China's insufficient demand, many economic organizations and forecasting agencies have successively announced that they do not believe China's economic growth rate can reach the target of 5%. However, as the People's Bank of China and the Ministry of Finance have successively announced loose monetary and fiscal policies, the Chinese government may still stimulate the economy by introducing more funds into the market, thereby allowing China's economy to reach the target of 5%. However, as Adam Smith, the father of economics, pointed out, The reason for a country's economic growth is the level of productivity. When a country's productivity is higher, the country's economic growth will also be better. However, if the government's policies cannot achieve the effect of improving productivity or increasing research and development, the government's expansionary policies may only leave a negative impact of increased debt. Therefore, when we observe the health of China's economy, in addition to paying attention to changes in economic figures, we must also consider the opportunity cost of its policy implementation to form a more accurate judgment on the prospects of China's economy. China's third-quarter GDP growth hits weakest pace since early 2023. Although the CCP often publishes dishonest figures and is often accused of fabricating them to improve the country's image, official figures released by the CCP on October 18th showed that China's economy grew by 4.6% year-on-year in the third quarter of this year, the slowest growth since early 2023. Among these, the situation in the real estate industry is particularly bad. Compared with the figures previously released by the National Bureau of Statistics of China, GDP in the first quarter of this year increased by 5.3% year-on-year, and the second quarter increased by 4.7%, while the third quarter growth rate announced on Friday further declined to 4.6%. It can be seen that even according to the data released by the CCP itself, China's economy has been below the CCP's 5% growth target for 2 consecutive quarters. In the first 3 quarters of this year, China's economic growth was only 4.8% year-on-year. The economic data released by the CCP has been questioned by the outside world for being inflated. The real estate industry is sluggish and exports are slowing down. In the first 3 quarters, China's industrial output increased by 5.8% year-on-year, and retail sales increased by 3.3%. However, real estate investment fell by 10.1% from the same period last year, and new home sales plummeted by 22.7%, showing that the real estate market is still in a state of deep adjustment and bottoming out. Because 70% of Chinese household wealth is concentrated in real estate, and the industry accounted for a quarter of the economy at its peak. These latest figures show that consumers' willingness to spend remains subdued, despite multiple rounds of policy support measures by the Communist Party of China over the past year. The real estate market shows no signs of recovery. Data on Friday showed that China's new home prices fell at the fastest pace since May 2015. China's crude steel output fell for the 4th consecutive month in September, failing to meet expectations of a rebound in construction material purchases. In addition, the key export sector, the only bright spot in the economy, has begun to show cracks, with shipment growth slowing sharply last month. Earlier this week, figures released by China Customs showed that exports slowed sharply in September, rising only 2.4% in dollar terms from a year earlier, down from 8.7% year-on-year growth in August. Imports were also weak, rising only 0.3%, both significantly below expectations. This suggests that manufacturers are slashing prices to clear inventory before multiple trading partners impose tariffs. China has always relied on infrastructure and manufacturing investment, consumption, and exports to drive economic growth, but investment has stalled, consumption has deteriorated, and now even exports have fallen. Economist: no surprises. Bruce Pang, chief economist at JLL, told Reuters, China's data for the third quarter of 2024 is not optimistic. Considering weak domestic demand, the real estate market is still struggling, and export growth is slowing, this performance is in line with market expectations. Earlier, a Reuters survey showed that economists expected China's economy to grow 4.5% year-on-year in the third quarter. The Reuters survey also showed that economists expected China's economy to grow by 4.8% in 2024, lower than Beijing's target, and growth may fall further to 4.5% in 2025. Increasing deflationary pressures. China has been dealing with deflationary pressures since the beginning of last year, and some economists believe recent data shows these pressures are increasing. As the outlook for exports, the only bright spot in the economy this year, seems to have dimmed under foreign trade restrictions by several major trading partners. The worrying weakening of export momentum has further increased pressure on Beijing to take measures to stimulate demand. The GDP data confirms that China is facing a situation of oversupply and insufficient demand. China is considered to have fallen into full-blown deflation, said Toru Nishihama, chief economist at Dai-ichi Life Research Institute in Tokyo. China has introduced a series of measures in recent weeks aimed at stimulating the economy, including lowering mortgage rates for existing homes and allowing banks to increase lending by reducing reserve requirements. However, industry insiders believe that most of these measures are piecemeal. China observers have repeatedly stressed the need for authorities to address long-term structural challenges such as overcapacity, high debt levels, and an aging population. The stock market trap that takes away the Chinese people's deposits. Recently, China's stock market has been volatile. On the evening of October 20th, 23 Shanghai and Shenzhen listed companies issued announcements that they would use the bank loans they receive for stock repurchases or share purchases. A senior accountant from the Mainland warned that this was a trap. The CCP used the stock market to extract deposits from ordinary people in order to achieve this year's GDP growth target. On the evening of October 20th, 23 Shanghai and Shenzhen listed companies issued announcements stating that they had signed loan agreements with banks and would obtain bank loan quotas, which would be used for the company's stock repurchase and share purchase plans. The 23 companies, including Sinopec, China Merchants Shekou, Sinotrans, Costco Shipping Energy, and Costco Shipping Development, applied for a total of nearly 11.5 billion yuan in repurchase and share purchase loans. Among them, Sinopec signed a credit agreement with the Bank of China and obtained a loan of nearly 900 million yuan for share repurchases. China Merchants Shekou obtained a loan of 702 million yuan from China Merchants Bank to support share repurchases, etc. On the same day, Zhejiang Securities in the Mainland announced that the stock market's downward trend since the 8th had ended. There is a high probability that the market will rebound at the same level on the daily line against the 3,674-point decline trend in the future. Analysis: China's stock market surge and stop are artificially manipulated by the CCP. However, Ms. Yu, a senior accountant in the Mainland, is not optimistic about the new wave of the stock market becoming a so-called bull market and warns that there is a trap behind it. On October 21st, Ms. Yu told the Epoch Times that the recent surge and stop in China's stock market is artificially manipulated by the CCP. The Chinese stock market is a scam, but many ordinary people can't see the trap, like outsiders. We inside the system also know that the government is now using the stock market to siphon off people's deposits in order to achieve the 5% GDP growth target. She said, now it's the fourth quarter, and they see that the GDP target of about 5% set by the top leader this year cannot be achieved. What should they do? The economy is not good, real estate is not good, and the three major drivers of GDP growth, investment, consumption, and exports, have all stalled. They've calculated the people's deposits. They think that the people have money in their pockets, but they haven't taken it out to spend. So they thought of some tricks. Asking the people to take out their money, stir up the stock market, and then GDP can increase a little. According to data from the People's Bank of China, as of the end of 2021, the total amount of deposits of Chinese residents reached 10.3 trillion yuan. The Mainland's Oriental Red Asset Management released the Equity Strategy Outlook for the fourth quarter of 2024, showing that the current deposit balance of Chinese residents has increased from 10.3 trillion to 14.7 trillion. Ms. Yu said, so recently, including the top leaders, the central bank, the Ministry of Finance, etc., have come forward to endorse the stock market, saying that the first phase will invest 500 billion incremental funds into the stock market, and another 500 billion will be invested in the future, to deceive the people into entering the stock market, but in fact, they did not really take out the money all at once, but just gradually took it out bit by bit.
The CCP's finances are in crisis, and public hospitals in many places have stopped paying salaries, with some even closing down. According to data released by the National Health Commission of the Communist Party of China, 43.5% of public medical institutions across the country suffered losses in 2022, with losses exceeding 1 trillion yuan, which is equivalent to an average loss of nearly 3 billion yuan per day for 365 days. Today, we are going to discuss the topic of unpaid and bankrupt Chinese hospitals. Video footage shows hospital employees collectively holding up banners that read, "Please give 400 employees a chance," and "Please give Luxinan Hospital a chance to reorganize." Dr. Zhou Hongsheng said, "There are more than 700 people in our hospital, and 601 of them are now unemployed. The salary plus Social Security exceeds 45 million. We are currently facing a situation where we cannot continue operating the hospital. It's not that we don't want to admit patients, but because our medicines are almost exhausted, we can't treat patients even if we admit them. All employees have not received wages for 8 months. I can only fast from today to reduce my guilt for the unpaid employees." Recently, it was reported online that the affiliated hospital of Jiaying College Medical College in Meizhou City, Guangdong Province, went bankrupt and had not paid salaries for 10 months. On October 24th, an employee of the hospital revealed that the hospital held a meeting 2 days ago and suddenly notified the employees to resign. "On Tuesday, the 22nd, we held a meeting and were asked to disband. Whether we have staff or not, we can't go to work," the employee said helplessly. "We were not notified beforehand, and we haven't received much salary this year." According to public information, the affiliated hospital of Jiaying College Medical College was founded in 2009. It is a public comprehensive secondary hospital directly under the Meizhou municipal government and an affiliated hospital of Jiaying College. The hospital covers an area of about 12,000 square meters, with a total construction area of about 31,000 square meters and 400 beds. According to the hospital's profile released in July 2023, it had about 240 employees at that time, including 58 with senior titles. He said in the video, "Oh my God, I saw news today that a certain affiliated hospital in Meizhou went bankrupt without paying salaries. What happened? I always thought that hospitals were a very stable place, but you certainly didn't expect that public hospitals could go bankrupt. I heard that salaries had not been paid since January. This time, more than 100 employees are facing unemployment. Yesterday, my friend complained to me that both he and his wife had their salaries cut while working in the hospital, and today I saw the news of the hospital's closure. I used to think that doctors and nurses were the most popular professions. I was really shocked. I don't know what those doctors and nurses facing unemployment should do next, and what profession is the most stable now." Prior to this, several general hospitals had filed for bankruptcy. In August this year, Huayuan Jingtu Hospital in Anhui Province filed for bankruptcy. Its predecessor was Huayuan County No. 2 People's Hospital. In May last year, Changxing No. 2 Hospitals in Zhejiang Province filed for bankruptcy. In June 2021, Lishan No. 4 People's Hospital in Sichuan went bankrupt due to debt. China's public hospitals are increasingly losing money. Official figures show that in 2020, 43.5% of China's 2,508 tertiary public hospitals suffered losses, with an asset-liability ratio of 44.09%. Additionally, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, local finances have seriously deteriorated. Therefore, public hospitals that mainly rely on fiscal subsidies have frequently reported salary cuts and reductions. In the video, he said, "How are doctors and nurses earning now? To describe it in one word, it is miserable. To describe it with a classic allegorical saying, it is like the old lady's new year getting worse every year. Because my wife and I both work in the hospital, I will talk about the changes in our 2 units. Let's discuss the changes this year. My wife's unit implemented a 30% salary cut at the beginning of this year. In fact, the reduction is quite substantial. Then, at the roundtable meeting last month, the leader directly stated that the year-end bonus will be canceled this year. Of course, I don't know whether this is true or not. If the year-end bonus is canceled, many people will definitely leave. Our unit is relatively better. It started cutting salaries by 20% last month and did not mention the year-end bonus. If the year-end bonus is really canceled, many people may really leave. This is the current situation of our 2 units. My current income level can no longer cover the mortgage. To put it bluntly, I still need to ask my wife for money every month to pay off the mortgage. This is the income status of an ordinary doctor in my area. Of course, I am not a leader, just an ordinary doctor in the department. This doctor works in the emergency department, and he said that their hospital has also cut salaries. He said in the video, "Brothers, I'm off the night shift, and I haven't updated the video for a few days. I encountered some things, some strange things you may not believe. Everyone knows that I work in the emergency department. The purpose of working in the emergency department was that although it is very tiring, the treatment in the emergency department is good, and the promotion is relatively faster than in other clinical departments. You can also receive the special department allowance. Oh, I am so tired. You don't know how hard it is to work 3 night shifts in 8 days. Even someone like me, who is over 30 years old, can only rest on the last day before returning to work. But now I have encountered a particularly distressing thing. The hospital has reduced salaries. How much has it been reduced? The emergency department's salary has been reduced significantly. What's more frustrating is that it is not as high as the salary level of other departments. My daughter is going to kindergarten these days, and she has to pay 2,100 yuan for 4 weeks. 2,100 yuan may be acceptable for the sake of the child, right? But after this salary reduction, my monthly salary is 2,100 yuan. I was thinking about this clinical department. They don't like the emergency department because they are always asked to consult and receive patients in the middle of the night. But Zhengxin first opens the emergency department. How frustrating this emergency department is. I am now doubting myself. Did I choose the wrong department? Did I choose the wrong industry? I am working the night shift with my life on the line. Am I wrong? Some doctors have to set up stalls to sell barbecue at night to increase their income. He said in the video, "Village doctors are not doing their jobs and have started to set up stalls to sell barbecue at night." Today, I saw a news report that a village doctor named Zhang in Masu has started to set up a stall to sell barbecue at night. Dr. Zhang's stall is located on a busy road in the local town. It has been a year since then. Although the area is not large, Dr. Zhang manages it properly. The price is affordable, and the taste is good. So there is an endless stream of people eating. As for being a doctor during the day and setting up a stall to sell barbecue at night, Dr. Zhang said helplessly that now the health center does not allow injections and infusions, there is a shortage of doctors and medicines, there are few patients, and the income is also low. Dr. Zhang said that although it is a bit hard to set up a stall every night, he can still earn some money and increase his income. Recently, many public hospitals in mainland China have reported that medical staff collectively demanded their wages. On October 16th, hundreds of medical staff from a state-owned hospital in Shanwei City, Guangdong Province, went on strike and gathered in the hospital lobby. The collective strike erupted due to the uneven distribution of bonuses. Online videos show that they held up white papers with "I want to eat" written on them and shouted slogans such as "Director, come out and give me back my bonus," and "I want to live." According to the person who filmed it, the protest was suspected to be due to only 3 departments receiving the August bonus in October, while other departments did not receive it. The unfair treatment caused dissatisfaction among medical staff. Public information shows that Shanwei People's Hospital is a non-profit large public general hospital with more than 600 beds and over 900 employees. It is a Grade 3 hospital. Many netizens said, "Where did the hospital go after extorting so much money from patients?" It's not an isolated case. There have been many such cases in the past 2 years. You can search online. Many have already taken out loans to pay wages, and they will almost go bankrupt when the loan quota is used up. Some people suggest going to private hospitals for medical treatment, but some netizens said, "Except for large private hospitals that offer better treatment, ordinary private hospitals are also like this. The private hospital where my classmate works has also delayed wages and cut off insurance." One netizen posted, "I am quite puzzled. There are so many patients coming in and out of the hospital every day. The money spent is not a small amount. There is also Social Security. People pay so much money every month. Why can't the hospital pay? Where does all the money go?" China. Is a financial tsunami coming? Over 50 banks and thousands of branches closed. China's economy is in a serious recession, with waves of collapse, bankruptcy, and unemployment spreading to the banking sector. Since the beginning of this year, more than 50 banks in China have gone bankrupt, and nearly 1,500 bank branches across the country have closed. Economists and analysts warn that a financial tsunami in China may be imminent, and more bank failures and collapses are inevitable in the near future. According to the latest data released by the State Administration of Financial Supervision of the Communist Party of China, at least 50 small and medium-sized banks have been dissolved this year, the vast majority of which are rural small and medium-sized banks. At the same time, the wave of mergers and reorganizations of small and medium-sized banks has accelerated. For instance, Liaoning Rural Commercial Bank absorbed and merged 36 rural small and medium-sized banks, while Shenyang Rural Commercial Bank merged with 30 rural credit cooperatives. Experts believe that China's economy is in severe recession, and bank bankruptcies, mergers, and reorganizations are the general trend. Xie Tian, a professor at the University of South Carolina, said, "It is quite serious that so many banks are closing at the same time. The reason is obviously that the entire Chinese economy is in a severe recession, and even the financing activities and financial activities of real enterprises are declining, resulting in decreased bank profits, bad debts, abnormal capital flows, or shortages of funds, and significant losses." Experts predict that more small and medium-sized banks may fail and close down in the future. Xie Tian also stated, "Because we see that China's original troika of driving forces for economic development, or the current so-called new productivity to promote economic driving forces, seems difficult to effectively stimulate the economy, China's economic recession may continue. Over time, more banks may face the same risk of failure." According to incomplete statistics from the State Administration of Financial Supervision of the Communist Party of China, as of July 25th, nearly 1,500 bank branches have been closed, including major state-owned banks, city commercial banks, and rural commercial banks. In 2023 and 2022, 2,756 and 2,383 Chinese commercial bank branches were closed, respectively. Analysis points out that behind the wave of bank failures is usually an impending financial tsunami. Taiwanese economist Huang Shichong said, "If the country's banks cannot operate, it also means that the country's economy has very big problems, including a sluggish banking industry, a sluggish real estate industry, sluggish corporate loans, and sluggish private consumption." Similar financial turmoil has occurred in Europe, the United States, and Taiwan. They have allowed it to collapse and then merged to quickly heal the wounds and stop the bleeding. However, the CCP's strategy is to wait for changes, so there may be more Chinese bank collapses in the future. China's economy in a deeper quagmire than Japan's in the 1990s. The latest data shows that China's economy is still in a deep quagmire, with various stimulus policies from Zhongnanhai failing, and the country officially entering a balance sheet recession. Lu Ting, chief economist at Nomura Securities, commented that the environment facing China will be more difficult than that of Japan in the 1990s. According to Chinese statistics, in the second quarter, foreign direct investment, FDI liabilities, decreased by nearly $15 billion. This is the second time this figure has turned negative. The previous instance was during the Asian financial crisis in 1997, and the outflow amount was also higher than the $12.1 billion recorded in the third quarter of last year. Assessing the turning point, in early 2022, when the CCP locked down Shanghai, foreign direct investment began to decline sharply and has not recovered since. The sharp decline in new loans shows that the vast majority of Chinese companies have become flat, unwilling or afraid to borrow to invest. The Social Financing Scale report released by the People's Bank of China last week showed that new loans were 260 billion yuan in July, down nearly 88% from the previous month, and far below the 450 billion yuan expected by analysts polled by Reuters. This is only about 1/10 of normal months, and the decline can be described as dramatic. Moreover, the People's Bank of China released cumulative data from January to July this time. Many data points do not include separate monthly figures for July and need to be calculated separately. According to Reuters calculations, household loans, mainly home mortgages, fell sharply by 210 billion yuan in July, while rising by 570.9 billion yuan in June. Corporate loans fell directly to 130 billion yuan from 1.63 trillion yuan in June. The official explanation given by the CCP is to squeeze out water, meaning the difference is caused by statistical magnitude. However, looking at the direct M1 of individuals and enterprises, the M1 balance fell 6.6% year-on-year, and the growth rate is still negative. At the end of last month, it was down 5% year-on-year. M2 increased by 6.2% year-on-year, which shows that most companies and individuals prefer to convert their current deposits into time deposits or financial management, rather than investment or consumption. This is a typical flat collective. Since July, more companies and individuals have begun to transfer their deposits into financial management and purchasing, greatly increasing the price of government bonds. This will increase China's financial risks because the corresponding government bond interest rates for the central bank, the increase in long-term interest rates, and government bond prices will lead to a decrease in long-term interest rates and the risk of yield inversion. This makes the CCP very concerned. The method calls for a direct ban on rural commercial banks, securities companies, etc., from conducting government bond transactions. However, it is obvious that it is not working well. Total social capital decreased in July, marking a major turning point in the decline of the balance sheet. Last year, Japanese economist Ku Xiaoming proposed a theory of balance sheet recession based on Japan's 30 lost years, which has aroused widespread concern in the Chinese government, industry, and academia. He pointed out that the cause of this recession is high debt in the private sector, which often causes individuals or companies to repay debt first to increase savings instead of consumption or investment, which in turn leads to economic growth slowing down or declining, and eventually an economic recession. Since last year, Chinese scholars have generally believed that, unlike Japan, there is no such thing as a balance sheet recession. The first 7 months of this year saw total social financing of 18.87 trillion yuan, a sharp decline of 3.22 trillion yuan compared to the same period last year, down 14.6%. Looking at the month, new RMB loans in July were 260 billion yuan, down 85.9 billion yuan from 345.9 billion yuan in the same period in 2023. This is the first decline since July 2005. So the economic community has once again begun to debate, has the Chinese economy entered the model of Japan's Great Recession in the 1990s?